Hello everyone. Well, for today's video I thought I would go through this atlas and I would talk about all the places in the United States where I have either visited or lived. But I will not be covering the place that I live now. But everything else is up for grabs. You will notice that this video is blurry right now, and the reason for that is I'm going to be using this magnifying glass to hopefully bring in parts of the map into focus to talk about. And I hopefully will be able to get it into sharp focus through here in the magnifying glass. But I'm looking at a very small screen and I can genuinely tell if it's more in focus than it is now. But it'll be kind of hard for me to tell if it's in sharp focus, but hopefully, I've practiced a few times. Hopefully it'll work out. So this is an old atlas as well, so there are probably many changes that need to be made to it, but it's what I have. This is Alabama, and I have not visited any place in Alabama. And I have not visited in any place in Alaska as well. Arizona. I have visited in Arizona, and that is in Phoenix, Arizona. I was there for a conference of designers 2 years ago. It's probably the most recent city that I have visited that is not in my immediate area, meaning driving distance. I had to fly here to Phoenix. And it was a really nice city. I enjoyed it. I don't know that I could live there. It was very hot, very dry. But the place we were staying was very nice, and I enjoyed my time there. So, Phoenix is the first city on our list in Arizona. I liked it because it was flat desert, and then there was just these mountains, or very, very large hills, that would just shoot up out of the flat land. It was very interesting. Arkansas. I don't believe I have visited any place in Arkansas. California. Let's see how we're going to do this. Actually, there is a box right here, and I visited in California with San Francisco. So this was another conference. This is a web design conference, probably about 5 years ago now, that I flew out to San Francisco. Absolutely amazing city. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the weather. It was cool and clear, which I hear is unusual for San Francisco. But while I was there, it was awesome. And I enjoyed many different restaurants, a German restaurant and a Mexican restaurant. I'm not sure, but I remember the German one. It was very good. And I took a trolley all the way to the coast with the Golden Gate Bridge, and I walked down the coastline. It was up on a hill for a part of it. It was really, really nice. Looked down on some warehouses, and it's a great city to explore, but exhausting if you're not taking a trolley, because there are amazingly steep hills in that city, as I found out when I tried to walk back. That is the only place that I've been to in California. Colorado. I have been to a place in Colorado, and that is, find my finger here, Denver, Colorado. I hope this is showing up. we stayed in Denver for a week with a youth group trip that I was on, and I was very, very, very sick during that trip. That's the only thing that I really remember about it. We were staying at a person's house, a group of us, and we all basically caught the 3-day flu, 3 to 4 days. It was very nasty. So that is my main remembrances of Colorado and of Denver, the state of Denver. And yep, that's it. I would love to go back and hopefully not have the stomach flu while I was there. Connecticut. I have not been to any city in Connecticut. Florida. Yes, I have been to many places in Florida. I will start out with the place I used to live in Florida. And that is here. There we go. In Melbourne, Florida. Lived there for many years. And it was nice. I never quite felt like I was home there. But it was a nice area to live in. And we visited Orlando many times, and of course Disney World and Epcot, and those attractions, we went to them probably about 5 times in the 9 years we lived there. And we knew some people who could get us massively discounted tickets or get us in for free, so that was always very nice. Other places, Miami, you can see Miami's down here. I don't know that you can see that. There we go. I visited Miami a few times. Did some work for some clients and dropped some stuff off, but never any kind of extended stay there in Miami. And many of the other cities up and down the coast, like Titusville, and we have over here on this side, let me find it, St. Petersburg. I think I mentioned in my 50 Goofy Questions that we took like a second honeymoon in St. Petersburg, and it was very nice. I love the waters of the Gulf are very different than the waters of the Atlantic, so it was a very beautiful, relaxing time. And I'm sure there's many other small places that I've visited, visiting friends here and there, but most of them are small cities throughout. Those are the main areas in Florida. Georgia, definitely in Georgia. Obviously, Atlanta. Of course, I've flown in and out of Atlanta, as anyone on the eastern seaboard pretty much is going to do, especially in the southern states. You're going to fly in and out of Atlanta, but I've also visited Atlanta as a tourist and enjoyed seeing the World of Coke and the underground, and I took a lot of photos. Kind of did a photo walk in the early morning downtown Atlanta many years ago when I was in college. So there we go. Ate at my first true French restaurant there. It was a very good introduction to French cuisine, little hole in the wall. And I've been to some other places way up in the hills here. I can't even remember the name of the very, very, very small town. It wouldn't even be on this map. I did some work for a client there. I have not been to Hawaii. And I do not believe that I've been to any place in Idaho. We drove through Idaho, but I don't think we ever stopped anywhere. Illinois, I have been to Chicago many years ago on another conference. This was a conference for using a program called Director, which is made by Macromedia and now owned by Adobe. But that was in the early 90s. And the convention, or the training, was supposed to be in a hotel in Chicago, downtown, and they changed it to a suburb of Chicago, which is a massive place, the suburbs of Chicago. But they did not tell us that they had changed it. So we ended up having to drive and hire a taxi to drive us to the place where it was. And that took us almost an entire day, from figuring out where we were supposed to be, to figuring out the transit system in Chicago, to get out to the airport, to then hire a taxi at the airport to drive us to where we needed to be. And then we had to come back and rent a car at the airport and then drive back and forth every day from downtown Chicago out to the suburbs. It was quite an adventure. But it was memorable. I don't remember much about Chicago because we weren't really in it that much. We were just staying there. It was kind of a weird reverse of staying in the suburbs and driving into Chicago to visit. But those are my memories of Chicago. Let's see. This is Indiana. I don't believe I've stayed in any place in Indiana or visited any place. We drove through, but I don't think we stopped anywhere. The same with Iowa and Kansas. Louisiana. Let's see. I was briefly in New Orleans. A few years ago, my father-in-law had a World War II ship reunion there, and we took the boys, and we saw a very, very similar ship to what he served on when he was in the Navy in the Pacific during World War II. And we pretty much came into town, did that, stayed the night, and then left. So those are pretty much my only memories of New Orleans. We didn't do any downtown stuff. My wife's parents are very conservative, so that would have not have been acceptable. I've driven through Maine, but I've never stopped anywhere in Maine that I know of. Let's see. Maryland. I have been to Maryland. I've been to Washington, D.C. many times. Well, 4 or 5 times. But it's kind of off the map here. I don't know that I can pull that up so you can see it. But we did stop at Baltimore. Here it is. One of the times when we were visiting Washington, D.C., we drove through Maryland and saw some of the places where my wife grew up in Maryland. And we spent the night in Baltimore and went to the aquarium there, which was very nice, a very big place. Little out of date as far as the architecture of the building, but inside it was really cool. And that was pretty much it. We stayed at a very, very cheap hotel in a very, very sketchy part of town. I don't know that we knew that it was exactly that sketchy when we booked the hotel, but it was fine. We were only staying there for one night. Massachusetts and Rhode Island, I've never been there. Michigan, never been to Michigan. Or Minnesota. Or Mississippi. Or Missouri. Or Montana. I know that we've driven through, we did a trip where we drove out west and then came back, so I know that I've driven through many of these states. But to say that I spent any significant time there would not be accurate. Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York. I have been to New York City. Again, it's way down here on the map. See if I can pull that up. I don't think so. But anyway, New York City. I've been there once when I was in high school. And it was nice. We did a few touristy things and visited a few churches and stuff like that. But that was ages ago. I would definitely love to go back. North Carolina. North Carolina is kind of split up here. There's parts of it in two little boxes. I have a good friend who lives in Charlotte. I can find my finger here. Lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. So about once a year we go up there around the end of October. And we help her out with a benefit gala there that she hosts. And we take pictures for her and have a good time hanging out with her in Charlotte for the weekend. So I visited there many times. There's an awesome restaurant there called the Cowfish, and they serve sushi and hamburgers, and they also serve hamburgers as sushi and sushi as hamburgers. So it's very interesting and very fun, and I enjoy that restaurant a lot, so we usually eat there when we go up. I've also been to Charlotte for IKEA furniture. Some of these others I know that I have driven through or visited, but Charlotte is the main one here in North Carolina. Don't believe I've ever been to a place in North Dakota. Now, Ohio. Well, as I've mentioned before, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, it's here in this big box. Cincinnati, which is located here in Ohio. So I'll just use this. It's a little closer. I was born in Cincinnati. And we lived right across the river in Covington, Kentucky here. There we go. So I spent about the first 5 years of my life in this area. And I enjoyed it. From what I can remember, my childhood, it was a very pleasant place. I particularly liked driving over the bridges between Cincinnati and Covington. And you'll see I have a video that I've done when we visited there at the Union train station and visited there and absolutely fell in love with it. I've done 1 or 2 videos about that, so you can look back through some of my old videos and see the Union train station. Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania. We visited Philadelphia. If I can find, there we go. We visited Philadelphia in Pennsylvania for a few days, we were looking at moving there, potentially, so that my wife could get her master's degree. Beautiful town. Reminded me a little bit of Cincinnati in Covington in the old sections, in the way the houses were built and put close together. But in the end, we decided not to pursue that, so we never moved to Philadelphia. I remember it was in the late fall, early winter, and it was spitting snow and cold and generally miserable the entire time, so I don't know if that had any influence on our desire to move there or not. South Carolina. I have lived here in Greenville. Find my finger here. There we go. I've lived in Greenville for many years, particularly my high school and college years. And that is where I met my wife, who lived in Spartanburg, which is up here somewhere. There we go. So this area, spent a lot of time in there. Let's see, South Dakota, no. Kentucky. This is Tennessee and Kentucky together. Cincinnati, of course, up here. But I also lived in, let's see, Lexington, Kentucky. I lived there for a few years after we moved from Covington. We lived in a very, very small city, not really even city, way out in the country called Sharpsburg for several years. It's not even on this map. And then we moved to Lexington for a few years before we moved to South Carolina. I liked Lexington. I liked the house that we lived in was really cool. We rented it. And I remember the castle that this man was building out on the highway. We could see it as we drove by, and it was almost done, but it was like being stalled. I think he ran out of money or something like that. So here we have Texas. And in Texas, I have visited the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And most of the time we spent in Fort Worth, but we also did a little bit in Dallas as well. And we were there for a potential job interview. And we almost moved to this area as well. But my wife ended up not getting the job, so that which was fine. We found another job. But it was a very nice city. We met some very, very, very rich people there. We would have been working with them if my wife had gotten the job. The school that they had for their children was such that pretty much most of them had bodyguards. Talking about that type of wealth. So that is the only city that we visited in Texas. Utah, I have been to Utah twice. And the first time, I do not remember what city we were in. It was during our youth group trip. But the second time was in Provo, Utah. And I was there on a business trip to help a company that made steel sheets. and help them with their training of their coiling machine. And so we spent a week out there learning about how the coiling machine worked, and I got to build it in 3D and animate it, and that was very fun. But once we got back, we did all that. This was a fact-finding trip to the steel company. It was very, very interesting project. No place in Vermont. I don't believe I've been to any place in Virginia for any period of time. Same with Washington. I have been to West Virginia, but I cannot remember the town. It was a very, very small town we stayed in, and I do not remember the name of it. Not been to Wisconsin. And I have not been to Wyoming either. So, quite a few cities that I have visited or lived in this country, and I enjoyed all of them. I don't know that there was ever a place that I visited that I completely just had to get out of there. Highlights probably would be San Francisco. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I have many more videos to make for you guys, and I will see you later. Bye.